ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side, pretty good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
Welcome into the Wednesday, August 15th edition. Your drive begins now here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Today is going to be a little bit different, more somber occasion, but I think we're going to have some laughs as well, because yesterday we all got the news that a Marshall legend passed away. Reggie Oliver passing away yesterday at the age of 66, and for many, Reggie was, for a lot of people, a iconic part of that era. But I think there's more to the story than just what maybe we remember Reggie for, the legend itself. I mean, the myth sometimes grows, but there was probably a better story behind the myth and the legend that was Reggie Oliver. So I've got some help today, and we're going to have later on in the program, Jim Grobe's going to join us by phone, so we're going to talk to him. So he'll be with us. But first of all, long-time equipment manager at Marshall University, a big part of this program for many years and for many years to come. Woody Woodrum is with us.
Hey there, Paul.
I couldn't do this without you, so you had to be here today. Dave Walsh, part of that Young Thundering Herd team, is with us. He's in back. Studio and couldn't do this without you as well. And we decided, hey, we're going to try to grab some guys, see who's in town, who can we just talk to today. And part of that 1970 freshman squad, Rick Meckstroth, is with us. And good to see you, sir.
Paul, thank you.
I wish we all could come together for a better reason, but I thought it was important that we just talked about Reggie Oliver today, because he was a huge part, as many of those Young Thundering Herd members were, a part of Marshall football then and now. And I know the legend of Reggie Oliver has grown, but I think there's a lot more to that story. I'll start with you, Rick. If you could, tell me about Reggie. I mean, where do you want to start? Where would you like to start on that?
Well, from the beginning, when we were here, when we came our freshman year, we all met together here at one time early in the season before all students came. And, that's where we came together, because there was a smaller group. We were recruited, and we were scholarship players, and we were able to come early to mix with the seniors. Kind of get used to the college life and the football of, 3 a days, and kind of the hard time. But Reggie is always larger than life, always outgoing. Being Alabama, he had colleagues that were on the himself. I'm from Cincinnati, and I had there was 4 good players from Cincinnati. Reggie had his from Tuscaloosa, great players. All nice. We all got together, and the nice thing is, when we were here, that we all bonded, and then we did that for the next 4 years, and I think for what we went through, and the bad time we had, that we came through it together, and I don't think we could have done it individually or at a smaller group. It's just that we all stayed tight and discuss things amongst ourselves, and there was a lot going on in our life as a freshman, and that was all the decisions we had to make, and we tried to do it as a group, and with Dave Walsh, and all the how many, we had a good group.
30s in the 30s for our freshman class. I think something like that.
Somewhere, but they didn't make it. We whittled them out. They left so quick.
It was a revolving door.
It was, wasn't it? I mean, some good football players. Some of them were great, but like I said, we got Reggie. He was there, and of course, he was always outspoken. He's a great ambassador for Marsh University, because he speaks so well, and he's always friendly. He don't know a stranger, and we had just the group of us. I don't think we had any bad times that I know of.
Just on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Just on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and that was only due to the fact that, some of the things we went through. That wasn't, after that, I think we did all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I tell you what, when hearing about his accident initially and then turning around and then finding this out that it didn't work out. It's a sad day for Marshall and for us, especially the team members. I know every one of them feel like David and I. It's hard to take.
Yeah.
And it's hard to talk about, really.
Yeah, I got the phone call from Bill Forbes about him falling. Then I found out he was in a chair reading the Bible. And then yesterday evening, a phone rings. Tim Stevens calls me. And I could tell by his tone of it was almost like Boz Johnson that day with the plane crash. When Tim goes, Dave, and I hear his voice, and I'm going, this is not good. And he told me about Reggie passing away, and I talked a little bit, and then I just sort of got in a daze. And thanks to social media and stuff, after sitting for a while, I wrote a little something, and just tried to put it into words. But at that point in time, it's difficult because you're thinking, you saw him speak in April. He falls. You get some encouraging words on a Friday at the vigil, and then we'll probably never know what happened. And then the phone rings for the call that we're all going to get one day, but we thought, not now. But then you think the impact he had. When you read social media, what Doc said, what Dr. Gilbert said, they've only known him for a short time. But as I said, he was an impact player and an impact person. That's all you got to say about Reggie. That speaks volumes.
Oh, Paul, he was just larger than life, and you can't frame it in the window of just Marshall, because Reggie also, the year after he was done, he was in the World Football League. And there's not a lot of guys that can claim that. They played for fun because the paychecks came and went quickly sometimes. And then Reggie had a tryout even with the Dallas Cowboys. But when he got back to Huntington, he had to student teach to get his degree. So he goes to Huntington High, coaches with, football over there and baseball. Toby Holbrook and, the great Claude Miller over there getting to work for both those ex-Marshall guys. So, so there's people at Huntington High who, in that period, who are really touched by this and were really kind of blown away yesterday. And then there's the guys that played for him when Sonny hired him here. And, my gosh, a lot of guys got their first college job under Sonny Randall. Jimmy Grobe, who's going to join us later, Bob Pruitt, Reggie. I'm pretty sure that Bill Stewart might have been in GA somewhere, but it was first paying job. And there were a lot of those guys, and we had some go in and out fast because Sonny was hiring quality guys who could go anywhere and work and make more money. But Reggie stuck it out all 5 years, and I've seen some of those guys posting. And then after that he moved on to Bowling Green and coached there for 3 or 4 years. And I was at Western Michigan one of those years he was out there. And, when I told him I knew Reggie Aller, some of the assistant coaches just shook their head. And I said, I'm sure you got something to add to a long list already. So you've got those folks. And, he had the coaching year. Probably what he really would have liked to stayed with was Alabama A&M. And then there's a horrible accident and a pedestrian's killed. And he loses that job after only 1 year. And I know he worked at Eastmore Academy up in Columbus too, but a lot of people who are young in the program, or even people like Doc and Dr. Gilbert, people like that who haven't known him very long. Some of us have known him, it seems like forever. And I think the thing that got us all was, it wasn't like Phil Ratliff where it came pretty quick, and it wasn't encouraging from the start. When he fell, and they're drilling his skull, you're really like, oh, my God. But then they say, he's thumbs up and that he's, showing some blinking and he's breathing on his own. And then all of a sudden he's gone. And it just flipped like that. I think that's the thing that most people are having trouble with. You were hopeful that he was going to come out of this, and then all of a sudden it was over.
Would you three agree that in that tragedy, Reggie Oliver was the right guy at the right time for everyone? Just the right personality, the right person to be in that terrible circumstance?
Yeah, there's no question. Reggie obviously was, with David, both of them were starting, quarterbacks and alternated. And you take, when you're working like that, they become the leader quickly. No different than a defensive leader, you know what I'm saying? So as they come along, the respect they got was good, and then Reggie always was good about working with everybody. So we come together, and he was the right person. There's no question. He was the one because he could talk to anyone and get the results that we needed to stay together. And then decisions were making, about coaches, who's coming in, and what they were going to do for us. We had prime example. I'll let David talk about. We had Coach Bestwick, right?
Yeah.
And that's
48
a good.
hours.
Yeah, let him tell you about that. That would blow you away.
That's some interesting points with Coach Bestwick because when Coach Dawson's book came out, there's just some time in that book devoted to it, and it's almost like what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. What we read, and then some things you find out, and you went, okay. But the one thing that sticks to me about Reggie that he made in his speech in April, we lose our varsity football team. We're all wondering what's going to happen. We probably could have left and went somewhere else. Reggie could have gone back home. Yeah. And Reggie said, nope, African-American or not, I'm going to stay here and see it through. And you saw what that decision led to. Now, some Saturdays, since that's the only day we played in those days, we took our lumps. I'm still mad at him because he had enough smarts to get hurt in the game that we won against Xavier to sit out the Miami Bahia massacre. I've never let him live that down. I said, Reggie, that was not fun. And you're back in the hot tub, whatever. So, but he stuck it out. He stuck it out and made his mark here. And then here we are, almost 50 years later. We're still, it's not like he's an afterthought. He will be with us for a long time. Right place, right time.
And I think he took it tough because there were 4 more players from Tuscaloosa. They'd all been teammates. They were just 1 year older than Reg. Yeah. And he decided to come here because of them, and then all 4 of them are swept away. So I think he felt like he had to be here. But, yeah, he was the right guy to lead this team. They needed somebody who could, believe it or not, make you believe that you're going out this Saturday and win. And I love when I've talked to these guys in the past because, some of them playing back then was ignored and pushed back. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have ceremonies every year. It took a long time before that happened. And Reggie went in the Hall of Fame in the first class when everybody else was a graybeard going in on that class. But it's only the best of the graybeards like Jackie Hunt and people like that. Reggie went in with that group. So, people may go back and look at his records now and go, this guy's a Hall of Famer. But, it's a different time and it's a different place. I found out something today that I was just looking for information. And when he threw, I think, just 14 touchdowns or something his senior year, I made him 9th in the nation in most touchdowns thrown. Yeah. So, he was a top 10 guy. He also had a lot of yards that year, that third year especially. He had a pretty good season, 1,058 yards. And, he was the right guy to kind of be. So he had to step up for Young Thundering Herd. He had to step up for the Hall of Fame. I know with Rick and Dave, and they would know how much the other Young Thundering Herd was involved. But when they came up with the idea, let's have a turning on ceremony as well as a turning off.
Correct.
And that was a huge deal. And, wherever he was, Reggie made it for all of those things. Before, turn it off, turn it on. And it's just so, so weird now you look back and that great speech he made.
We're going to take our first break. We'll come back. We'll continue with these gentlemen. Later on, we're going to hear from Jim Grobe. And if we have time, we'll make time for your phone calls at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. We've got more on the way. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to this Wednesday, August 15th edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I've assembled some guys to help me talk about Reggie Oliver. I've got Woody Woodrum with me in studio. I have got Dave Walsh. I've got Rick Meckstroth. Here in a few minutes, we will hear from Jim Grobe, and later on we'll take your phone calls. And Gentlemen, we've been talking about Reggie a little bit in the break as well. This was important for him to be a part of Marshall after everything, and he really, I think, was a vocal leader in making sure that Marshall had a football program.
That's correct.
This wasn't, okay, I'm obligated, I'm going to stick through. I mean, he was dedicated to making sure this did not end after the plane crash.
Correct.
He wanted to go forward. We were talking about Coach Bestwick, who was here today, gone the next day, and some things, and Reggie and others were going like, what's the deal? And then all of a sudden, Coach Lingle walks in from Worcester, and he's the head coach. We didn't know much about him. We found out later on, but we all thought, well, at least we're going forward. They haven't thrown in the towel, hung up the whistles, or put the gear away. We're going to give it a shot. That's all we wanted. Reggie here, a chance to leave, whatever. I think his calling card was just give me a shot at whatever I'm doing. Give me the chance, and I'll do my best to make it. And he pretty much was a success more often than not at whatever path he traveled.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you saw when he went to the pros. I mean, he was throwing around 49% his senior year. He threw 52% or so, 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns, ran for 3 more scores. He did that with it. The World Football League had any kind of footing. He could have played for a long time. Then he goes play for Dallas, who was boatload of quarterbacks crazy, and maybe not the right pick at the right time. But, he never felt like that let him off the hook for anything. He was still proud of being here. He was excited when he got to come back. But even when he wasn't here, he was excited to tell people about Marshall. I think that's the one thing in Reggie that I know. And he wasn't a guy that was pounding his chest and putting himself out front. He got some of that in 2006 when they sent in a guy about as tall as me to play him. And, you send in a 5'8" guy to play a 6'2" guy, but it all looks bigger on TV. So, but Reggie never gave up on that. Promote Marshall, promote the Thundering Herd, make sure the program's being well taken care of, come back and lend your voice to that chorus often.
I know the answer to this, but it's an obvious question. Without Reggie, where's Marshall football in those latter years to this point? Because for a while, I'm sure a lot of people maybe just, I don't want to say forgot, but it was downplayed a little bit. And then it started, people rediscover, remember it again. And Reggie was an important part of, I don't want to say this resurgence, but people just realizing, hey, we can't let this go. We can't forget.
Correct.
We can move on. We have to move on. We have to move forward. But at the same time, we can't forget. And Reggie was a very vocal proponent of not forgetting and moving forward at the same time.
Right. And he continued to push the program and continued to his ambassadorship to the school. And which, as we go forward from where we were then to today's time, I think it's fantastic. I mean, what this program has gone to is unbelievable, and that's thanks to the coaches that we have. Thanks more to Reggie than anybody that I know, because he was always proud and stayed here and coached a little bit afterwards and went to Bowling Green, but he always talked about Marshall. And I've been with him since the day he was here, first day, along with David.
Yeah.
And, I can't say enough about a fellow guy that I have become one of the best friends in the whole career I've been here. And it's a boy from Alabama and talking to a boy from Cincinnati. It's just that commitment he had. He just was the most friendliest guy. He didn't have any enemies, and everybody loved him. So, like I said, he's a great person and helped this program tremendously.
And Woody's talking about some of the numbers a while ago. 1,000 yards here and some touchdowns. Nowadays, that's a quarter, maybe 2 games in. They've already hit those numbers. I mean, Reggie was always under center. Quarterbacks at Marshall now very seldom, if ever, get under center. So the game has changed, but he found a way to adapt. And I think one of the things that he talked about, and one of the things that struck me when we have talked about it, was this past Super Bowl Sunday. We're sitting there wherever he was in Alabama at the time, helping his mom out. You think about Chad Pennington doing some Super Bowl work, Benny Curry playing to get a Super Bowl, and Randy Moss getting into the Hall of Fame. And as Coach Holliday's pointed out, he says, what school has had 3 guys doing something like that on the same day? Why would you not want to come here? And as I thought about, did we make the right decision on a day like that, validates even more so what Reggie, Rick, and I went through. 60, in 2 weekends we beat Xavier and got our head handed to us at Miami. That wasn't fun. I'll be talking to the team in about a week over this again. But at the same time, when you see what happened on Super Bowl Sunday, they made the right decision. Took a while to get it there.
Yeah.
Coach Parrish got some things going, but, hey, that validates it. 3 guys in 1 weekend. I'm sorry, school up north, I don't think can make that claim. Other schools can't make that claim. I mean, 3 from Marshall, all doing Super Bowl work or being rewarded for what they did for their career.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from another voice. Jim Grobe is going to join us on the program when we continue on this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Come up once or twice that week.
We've got a lively group here in the studio right now. Welcome back to The Drive here at ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. I've got Woody Woodrum with me. I've got Rick Meckstroth with me. I've got Dave Walsh. And I'm sorry, Dave, I unfortunately reminded you of 66-6.
We got some time.
Yeah. Let's
remember, Reggie ducked out of me on that. He left me. He was back here in the hot tub having fun, and I was getting carried off the field up at Oxford that day. But I had retribution later, and I will relive that point too. So.
Okay. There's only one guy I've ever congratulated for beating Marshall in anything.
Uh-oh.
And he's with us on the program now. He is a longtime son of Marshall. Jim Grobe is with us, and that was I don't know. You probably don't remember. You're in the elevator after that win against Marshall, and I looked at you and I said, if anyone's going to beat the Herd, I'm glad it's you. And you're the only one I'm ever going to congratulate for that, Coach.
Well, that was tough for me. I don't want to beat the Thundering Herd, and of course the coach, and we're best friends. So, that was kind of a mixed blessing for me. I was proud of our team and glad to get a win over a great football team, but it had mixed emotions because I love Marshall for sure.
Jim, thanks for doing this today. If you would, I'm going to start you out maybe on a happy note. Give me your best Reggie Oliver story. Maybe something that, you thought of when you heard the news yesterday, or something that really makes you smile when you think of Reggie Oliver.
Well, I just smile when I think of Reggie Oliver. I mean, Reg was just one of those people that whenever you saw him coming, you just smiled because you know you're going to have a good time. And the funniest, for me, the best thing, every time I saw Reggie, he could shake hands with you exactly like Sonny Randall. And he would come up and he would turn that hand kind of sideways and he'd reach out and kind of stab you with his hand. He would say, Sonny Randall, and it sounded just like Coach Randall. And every time you saw him, that's exactly the way he would greet you. And I just, every time I think of Reggie, I get a smile on my face. Just so sad. I've been talking with Bobby Pruitt and Waverly Brooks, some of the coaches, and then a lot of the players have been back and forth on social media since Reggie's accident, and just really, really sad day for the Thundering Herd.
Jim, talk about, I know you were with Coach Randall for nearly all that run, and Reggie was as well, but gosh, there were a lot of guys that got their first job there. You mentioned Pruitt and so many others that yourself. I mean, I know you guys had worked as GAs and whatnot, but talk about the staff and how Sonny pulled so many good coaches together.
Well, it was really amazing, the coaching staff we had. John Sternheld and Bill Stewart and just a bunch of great coaches. Bob Brown. We had a lot of good football coaches on that staff, and probably none better than Bobby Pruitt. And it was a tough time. As you remember, Coach Randall was pretty demanding. And, I survived playing for him and then also survived coaching for him. He told me that I got him fired twice as a player and as a coach. But, with Coach Randall, it was a pretty stressful time. He wanted to win, today, not tomorrow, not down the road right away. And so he put a lot of pressure on the players and the coaches. And, Reggie was part of that and was one of those guys that helped build Marshall, laid some founding blocks for Marshall in the future. And one of the things that we did, we enjoyed each other. We really enjoyed each other. And Reggie was a big part of that and always had a smile on his face. And, you talk about things that make me smile. I always remembered, him imitating Coach Randall. And that was probably the most, we had for that 5 years that we were together, and all of us weren't there for the whole 5 years, but for the 5 years that those of us were there that time were together, it was just a special, special time trying to get Marshall football back on its feet.
Jim, Reggie is remembered by a lot of younger people, maybe who don't know him as well, for game heroics. There are a few moments in his career where we circle, and it's just a moment in time where the game heroics were larger than life. But what should we really be remembering Reggie for? What's the real Reggie Oliver compared to maybe the myth that we built for him? Or is it the same thing? I mean, was he larger than life?
Well, I think one thing that you don't ever want to lose sight of is he was a very talented football player. I think Reggie was really kind of ahead of his time because I think he would have fit very well in these run-pass option offenses today. The dual threat guy. Some guys are back there in the shotgun and they call them dual threat guys, but they're really just dual guys. They don't run great or throw great. And I think with Reggie, I think you had a guy that would have been perfect in some of the modern-day offenses with the option to run or throw the football because he could do both. But the thing I think that everybody in their life just have a few people that you always enjoy seeing. Anytime you're around them, they make you feel better. You smile and you laugh and tell stories, and you just when you see them coming down the street, you just can't help but look forward to your time together. And that was Reggie Oliver. Anytime I saw Reggie, I just it just makes just lifts you up, makes you feel better being around the guy.
Jim, I'm just happy that I didn't foul up the film too much, so you didn't get yelled at about that.
That was the biggest stressor, I got to tell you, Woody. Not that I ever worried about your ability to get the film straight, but to what I would have to do if you didn't have it straight, I'd have to go nose to nose with Coach Randall, and that was never a pleasant thing.
Well, you're right, and for people to look back on those days and they see the records, and sometimes people have asked, how could you have been bad so long? And there were so many things that changed. But one of the things I remember about you guys coming in was you want somewhere to work out. We don't have anywhere to work out. They can't promise you room in Gullickson or anything like that. And so you guys go over with your snow shovels and clear the parking lot of Fairfield Stadium. Sonny buffaloes them into buying 100 sets of sweatpants and tops and then get somebody locally to donate the knitted caps so the players can actually do stretches under the stands at Fairfield. And if there's any place colder in Huntington on any day than underneath those stands at Fairfield, and then all that snow on top of it, you're looking around, you're probably wondering, so this is big-time Division I football, huh?
Well, I think that was one of the most fun things we had to do was figure out ways to get things done, and you had to be a little bit unconventional. And, the thing with Coach Randall was we were going to work. No matter what, we were going to work hard, players and coaches. And, when I look back at that, Coach Brooks and I were talking about it not too long ago, but when you look back at that was pretty much child abuse. Taking those guys over to Fairfield and running up and down those bleachers. They were slick and had snow all over. We had guys falling down the steps. And to think back to those days, it's something that I think everybody looks back on fondly. But we were out there freezing to death running in Fairfield Stadium. We probably didn't appreciate it as much as we do now.
Joining us on the program, he's been with the program for a long time in different capacities. He's Jim Grobe. Sad day, Jim, but I think with all the sadness at the same time, a lot of maybe good memories have been brought up and a reappreciation. Not that we really needed to reevaluate that, but a new appreciation once again for Reggie Oliver and everything he did.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, honestly and truly, I love Reggie Oliver, and every time I think of him, I'll have a smile on my face. He leaves a lasting, it's enduring. You know, it's not something that people will forget. Anybody that knew Reggie, who was blessed to have known him. And anytime I think of Reggie Oliver, I'll have a smile on my face.
Coach, thanks for joining us. And we got to let you get back to, I guess, grandpapa duty again here. More things are happening in the Grobe family.
We've got number 5 on the way here anytime now. We're in Charlotte, and Ben and Nicole, they're having their third. Of course, Matt up in Huntington, we got 2 up there. And so we're enjoying our grandkids for sure.
Get up here as quick as you can, Jim. We need a visit from you.
Yeah. We'll do it. Well, I'm coming for homecoming for sure. Matt's got hurt golf day on that Friday, and we'll be there for homecoming. So we're planning on getting back and seeing everybody.
Okay, definitely. Great. We'll talk to you soon then. Thank you, sir.
All right, y'all be good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's Jim Grobe. We're going to take a quick break, come back. We've got Huntington Mayor Steve Williams joining us on the program when we continue on this edition of The Drive. Welcome back to this Wednesday, August 15th edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I've got an interesting studio here.
Do I have to get up and give up my seat since the mayor's getting ready to come on? That's what happened to me at council meeting on Tuesday. They made me get out of my seat, and then the mayor sat there.
No, you keep your seat.
Okay.
He's on the phone.
There you go.
By the way, in studio, you have Woody Woodrum, you have Dave Walsh, you have Rick Meckstroth. We have Steve Chapman, who has just bust into our studio. And Huntington Mayor Steve Williams is joining us on the program now to talk a little bit about Reggie Oliver. This has been it's a sad day, but at the same time, I think we've made it an enjoyable day. Just all the good memories we have of Reggie, and I'm sure you have some as well, Mayor.
We all have wonderful memories of Reggie, and I wish I was there with Dave and Rick. And,
no, you
hey
don't.
Guys.
Hi, Steve.
And it sounds like there's a bit of a party, and Reggie is right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Reggie was bigger than life all the time. When I first met Reggie, it was unique circumstances. I was never his teammate, although I feel like I was a teammate of his and of Rick's and Dave's. Even though we never played a down together, there was that closeness with all of those guys after the crash. But when I was a senior in high school, I was a quarterback at Huntington High, and we would be working out in the summer. I'd go over and work out with Reggie and Roy Tabb and Charlie Henry and goodness, I don't remember who all else. But I was a quarterback going into my senior year in high school, and Reggie was there, and he was just throwing and throwing and throwing, and I learned an awful lot from him. As a matter of fact, at one point, he looked at me and he said, "You're going to throw a lot of interceptions this year." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You're not looking down the field. You're looking down at the ground." And he was teaching me. He was coaching even then that keep your eye on down the field. Don't be looking at the line that's coming to you. Be looking down the field. And that was the beginning of my friendship with Reggie. But interestingly, and Dave, I don't know if you remember this, your senior year you all were playing Dayton. It was a nice sunny day in early November at Fairfield Stadium. I think it may have been even late October. But I think Reggie went something like 21 for 24. I mean, it was some unbelievable statistics. And you all just beat the living daylights out of Dayton. And after the game, I was standing in the parking lot outside the dressing room, and that's when Coach Lingle told me that they were offering me a scholarship to play football at Marshall. And I always connected that whenever I think of Reggie, how he performed that day, and then when I was able to hear that I was getting a scholarship offer at Marshall. Reggie was, as we've said, and I'm sure you've heard throughout this broadcast, it was bigger than life.
Mm-hmm. Steve, how important was Reggie as far as not only uplifting the program after the plane tragedy, but in those years in between the movie and maybe that time where we didn't get complacent, I think, but it had passed, people were moving on a little bit, and I don't want to say people forgot, but there was a time where I think a little resurgence needed to happen, and I think Reggie was always there in between when the tragedy happened to the movie and beyond.
Reggie was there. Actually, my freshman year, he was playing in, what was it called, the World Football League?
Yeah.
With the Jacksonville, what were they called? The
Sharks.
Sharks. Mm-hmm. Reggie was back, and Woody, I think this was around the time that you arrived. It was Coach Elwood had come aboard. Reggie was with us in January maybe, or February. He was back that soon after going down to and was playing at with Jacksonville, and he was always back.
Yeah,
he was always here. And once he quit playing, he coached at Huntington High School. He was coaching for Claude Miller over for the Pony Express. I was helping out the team at the time. In the evenings when I'd get off work, I'd go over, and Reggie just always, I don't ever remember when Reggie wasn't around. Now, of course, when he was coaching in college ball, to be around, but as soon as the season was over with, he was always right back here. If there was anything that Reggie did, is that, and I'm sure each of you guys will attest to this, I find it interesting to hear some of the other athletes in the more successful eras saying that they're not recognized or enough. Shoot, with all that Reggie and the guys went through in those early years right after the crash, none of them feel entitled.
No.
None of them feel entitled. As a matter of fact, they feel that they have a responsibility to continue to give, not give back, just to give to the university. And it's not necessarily financially; it's just to be there to be of support. And that's the uniqueness of the Young Thundering Herd. Those players feel that there's always something that they need to give a little bit more, and that's where I kind of snicker whenever I hear some of the other stuff saying about how some people feel they're not appreciated. Good Lord, they didn't go through those days. I remember, I guess it was my junior year, we weren't doing very well, Woody, and somebody, I was standing outside a Spanish class with a guy named Speedy Bevins, who was a radio guy from down in Logan, and Speedy and I were standing out in the hallway, and he said to somebody, well, basketball season's about to start, and I think it was somebody who worked the scoreboard at the basketball game, and said, well, thank goodness we don't have a football program around here or something like that. And he said, well, be careful. One of the football players is standing right here. And he said, well, he'd be the only football player on campus. And that was the kind of crap that we heard all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I was always amazed when somebody would get a little liquid courage in the bars. And they go challenge these guys because we had a 2-9 year in 75. And, and so they're going to go out and they're going to whip somebody. I'm like, they're still Division I college football players. Even if the overall scheme isn't working, I think they'll probably take you and dust you around a little bit. And that happened a lot.
Dave and Rick will attest to this. Yeah. We had great athletes. We just didn't have the numbers. We would be playing. There were very few times that we were absolutely just blitzed off the field. Oftentimes, it was close up until, well, yeah, you can think of one or two. But we would be in the game in the fourth quarter. They'd be running away simply because we didn't have the.
It also have something to do with whether it's early part of the season when they were still healthy, and then later in the season when we weren't deep enough with it, quality.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Experienced
we just
players.
Didn't have the,
Playing
we didn't have the numbers. You all were playing freshmen, but even by the time your senior year, what you have to have, the reason the team is having the success that they have right now is that they can go deep. It's not that they have large scholarship numbers. They just have talent that's 2 and 3 deep that would be able to start at a lot of other places. We had great starters, but there was a big talent drop from first team down to second team, and then heaven forbid if you get down to third team, and that was a big difference. But Reggie Oliver, when he walked in the room, you knew Reggie was there, and he gave a perfect example of that when he gave his speech at the spring fountain ceremony this past April.
Steve, we'll have to cut it there. We're out of time. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll have you back soon.
Good seeing you, Steve.
Bye.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks. See you guys. Bye.
That's Huntington Mayor Steve Williams. That's going to do it. Gentlemen, thank you. Woody Woodrum in studio. Dave Walsh, who is taking his headphones and just slammed them down. Rick Meckstroth, who knows more about radio in the 1 hour I've known him than you in the year I'm trying to teach you, Mr. Walsh. For our producer, Gabriel Sellers, and our videographer and team photographer, Steve Chapman, I'm Paul Swann. This has been The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM to AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.